or the dry cleaner down the street, or the neighbors across the street decide, I'm gonna fix my house up and pull the weeds because these guys have added some curb appeal to spruce the neighborhood up. So you start to look at those construction costs. You know what, it's like throwing a dart sometimes. You might go out, you might have walked the property, you might have an idea in your mind, you might talk to a contractor, but it's still like throwing a dart until you get to the back end and do the due diligence. Once I have all that figured in, I go down here in this section, and this is all my expenses. And when I look at expenses, I want to see, when I look at a deal that comes into my office, I want to see that expense ratio being about 50% of effective gross income. Let me show you how we get to that number. So, effective gross income, if you look in here, is a result that I start with market rate rent. So I rent my apartment for $1,000 a month, but I had to let Sean move in for $900 just in order to rent the place. Now I have what's called a loss to lease. My loss to lease goes in the next line. That's a deduction. That's what I'm losing by not renting it at market rate rent. Then after that, I will put in vacancy. Remember, there's two kinds of vacancy. There's physical vacancy. Somebody doesn't live in an apartment. It's empty. I don't have any way of collecting rent. But then there's economic vacancy. And that's where somebody lives there, but now they're not paying rent. So when you look at an offering memorandum, a lot of times these brokers will just put a vacancy number in. They don't show you both. So make sure you dig in and look for those numbers a little bit. And then we add back in, or take out any concessions or bad debt, and add back in other income. And that other income is that amenity income. Parking, vending machines, laundry, community fees, tech fees, wherever you can create more income. And then we come down to this line here, which is your effective annual income, your effective gross income. Then from there, all the expenses come out. I want to see that I have a 50% expense ratio. If I'm lower than 50%, who's paying the utilities? If the tenants are paying the utilities, I'm okay being lower than 50%. But if I'm higher than 50%, then there's a problem. And I want to look into that and figure out what the issue is and can I correct it. Once the expenses come out, including all your taxes, including all your insurance, then we have net operating income. That's NOI. In the commercial business, it's a whole different language. I had a long time in the residential side and thought, this will be a breeze. I'll go into the commercial business and it'll be just the same thing. And it was so different. People started talking about cap rates and yields and NOI, and I was like, really? So I had to learn all of that language. But the NOI, the net operating income, is my money that's left over to pay my debt service. Now I can pay my mortgage. Once I pay my mortgage, what do I have left over to pay my investors? And that's the key point right there. So if I can make NOI higher, I can pay more to my investors. So down in this section here, this is our finance section. This is where we, again, throw a dart. What can I get a loan for? What's the interest rate going to be? What's my LTV going to be, my loan to value on the property? Because this particular property is a 5-property portfolio, 277 units, we're assuming 5 fixed-rate mortgages. That means we're taking over existing debt that has 3.4 or 3.6% interest already in it. And that's fixed-rate debt to 2031, which part of my exit plan gives me the ability to be able to trade out of it again to another investor who can assume that.